Namaste, this is Abhinav from Lighthouse Souls. I welcome you uh, in my existing series of videos with respect to this book, The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. I will be today covering chapter 5 of this book. The title of the chapter is One is All is One, the Five Aggregates. Before I move forward, if you are interested in learning mindfulness, I have created a Facebook group on mindfulness, dedicated Facebook group on mindfulness. The link is there in the description. So you can do join that group. I'll be posting lot of tips and insights in that group going forward. Also, we are on Spotify now. So if you prefer to listen this as a podcast, you can search for Lighthouse Souls in your Spotify, and you will get the link to our, and you'll get the videos, the podcasts of all these English videos, right? Okay, so we will start now. This chapter, this is the fifth chapter, and this basically, if you see, this chapter talks about interbeing, interdependence, right? So it's a bit heavy for a beginner. I myself am learning on this particular aspect. This is one of the core teachings of the Buddha on interdependence, interbeing, right? This is in that, that is in this, right? So this is one of the core topics which Thai has covered in this chapter 5. So let us go through with an open mind. To whatever extent we can absorb it, let's absorb it. Let's come back to this teaching again and again, so that we are able to, as our consciousness rises, we will be able to digest more. Right? So Thai basically says that there are, uh, if you basically want to achieve liberation from narrow views or liberation from suffering, there are basically three things, right? Three things, three contemplations. Contemplations means thinking about something, contemplating about something. So there are three things that Thai says you need to contemplate. One is interdependence. That means interdependence. I'll come to it, what it means. Interdependence, impermanency. So interdependence is basically that everything is dependent on anything. There is no separate self, which is Buddha's teaching on emptiness, right? There is nobody has a separate self. It's all one greater reality that is there. Second thing is impermanency. Nothing stays forever. Everything is changing, right? So this reality is fluid. Everything is changing. Third is compassion, right? Compassion is one cornerstone in Buddhism. So these are the three main contemplations we need to do if we want to achieve liberation. Now, this particular chapter is mainly dedicated to interdependence, as we will see, right? So, what Thai says that, see, beginner level, what you need to do is that you need to fix your attention to your breath and maybe achieve a certain level of concentration. But now, at one point, as you achieve a certain level of certain degree of concentration, then what you can do is that you can start contemplating on the interdependent nature of objects, right? So if suppose you start your meditation, you go deep and then you can start contemplating. So it can be any object. It can be like your sadness, or it can be something like your ancestors, or it can be any feeling that is bothering you, right? Anything, any object, right? It can be a table, it can be a chair, right? And you can see the interdependent nature of that thing. So I'll come to that, right? What basically Thai is saying is that there is nothing that is existing in this universe independently. Everything is, there is a dependent nature of everything. That means if I am thinking about something, I am thinking that something is because I am thinking about it, right? That something doesn't have an independent reality, right? Hope is hope for something. Thinking is thinking about something. When the object of knowledge, the something, is not present, there can be no subject of knowledge. That means my thinking also will not be there if the object is not there. So my thinking is basically because of the object. The object exists because of my thinking, right? So everything is interdependent. The practitioner meditates on mind, and by doing so is able to see the interdependent nature of the interdependence of the subject and the object, right? When we practice mindfulness, the knowledge of the body is mind. Okay, when we practice mindfulness of the body, about this body, when we and I meditate on this, my my then the knowledge of the body is the mind. That is that knowledge of that there is a body is also the mind. When I meditate on my anger, that knowledge of my anger is also my mind, right? So there is nothing outside of this mind, right? So I don't cannot go deep into it, because then it will be outside of the basically beginner kind of thing. So what basically Thai says is that in Buddhism, what basically Thai says is, in Buddhism we call the objects of mind the dharmas, right? So objects, whatever you see outside, there are basically five things. You can divide them: bodily and physical forms, feelings, perceptions, mental functionings, and consciousness. These are the five categories. These are called five aggregates, right? The Thai says that the fifth category, consciousness, actually integrates all other categories and the basis of their existence. Now, Thai says contemplation on the interdependence is the deep looking in the dharmas. Dharmas means these five things: body, mind, perceptions, mental functionings, and consciousness. Deep looking in them, right? So if it's anger, I deeply look at my anger, right? In order to pierce through to their real nature. Basically, what the purpose of deep looking is, that I can actually see the real nature of my anger. So right now, if I'm saying, I'm angry, it is, I'm looking at the surface level feeling. But now, the more I develop my concentration and look deeply into my anger, I may see the where from this anger is coming from. Is it coming from what happened in the past, or is it coming from my ancestors, right? And what is the real nature of this anger? I will be going deep into it, right? In order to see them as part of the greater body of reality, and in order to see that the great body of reality is indivisible, right? So Thai says that whatever problems we face in life is because we try to cut the reality into pieces. This is me, this is that, this is that, this is that, right? And that is where the problems arise. We have to develop our understanding so much that uh, we see it everything as that one great awareness, one great body of reality, instead of piecing them. So Thai says the first object of contemplation is our own person, our own, like me. So I see in myself all the five aggregates: my body, my all the mental faculties, my feelings, my emotions, my aversions, my cravings. You contemplate right here and now on the five aggregates which made yourself, right? Again, this is possible if you have gone a bit deep into your mindfulness, have a certain degree of concentration, and then you can sit one day and you can sit and contemplate on this body, right? You observe these objects until you see that each one of them has an intimate connection with the world outside yourself. If the world did not exist, then the assembly of the five. So you basically look at all your feelings, and you can look deeply and find out that why this anger exists, because there is something outside. If there is if there is nothing outside, then this anger will not also arise. So it is not me versus outside. It is all part of that one reality that I am part of. No, we cannot divide. if that if that arises in me, then then my anger, my jealousy, my blame, my resentment, or everything vanishes, because there is only that one reality, right? It cannot be divided, right? For example, Thai gives the example of a table. So I'll just So this is the mindfulness bell, and every bell reminds me to come back in the present moment. I've configured it my laptop. Purposefully, I didn't disable it because I wanted to, help my viewers or listeners also to get a taste of this. This is, you can configure it on your laptop. It is the mindfulness bell, right? Every bell, you come three times back to your breath, back to your body, right? Okay. Now, if you grasp, now Thai gives the example of a table, right? If you now Thai says that table's existence is due to the non-table elements: the forest where the wood grew, the carpenter, his ancestors, because if the carpenter is there because of his ancestors, the iron ore, the nails, the screws, countless other things that have relation to the table, the sun, because of that sun the tree could grow, the earth, because the earth the tree could, because the rain the tree could grow. Everything is there in that table. If you grasp the table's reality, then you can see that in the table there are present all those things which we normally think of as a non-table world. That means in that table there are all the non-table elements that are there, right? If you took away any of these non-table elements and return them, so if you take away the sun, if you take away the rain, if you take away the carpenter, if you take away the screws, then what will be left? There will be no table. That means important thing for us to understand is that everything that I can see, everything that I can feel in me or in outside, lot goes into creating it, right? So so my feelings are, my body is composed of several things: the sun, the air, the my ancestors, everything. So that sense of my own separate self, that gives me pain, that gives me insecurity, right? Insecurity that, h- how will I feed myself if I don't have money? There is a greater reality, there is a greater awareness in action, right? uh, when you see me, you can see all the non-abhinav elements, right? And similarly, when I see you, I see all the non, whatever is your name, elements, including me. So there is, I am in you, you are in me, right? I hope you are getting, so it's a bit deep concept. Okay. So if I get to that understanding, if I get to that insight, that vipassana, then everything falls in place. My suffering goes, right? When I see that everything is this one reality, I'm not separate. All cultures, even in Ashtavakra, in Hindu traditions, in Hindu religion, all these, this is all mentioned. So in Buddhist tradition, it is called as a interdependence, interbeing. Okay. The person who looks at the table can see the universe in the person who can see the way. Is the person who can see the way. A person who looks at the table and sees the whole universe is the person who can see the way. A person who can look at the food and can see the clouds, the rain, the hard work of the farmer, the hard work of all the middlemen. The person who had made this food is the person who has seen the way, right? Who is there, who is practicing the way, right? So Thai says that we have to do this activity not only in our meditation, in our daily life, right? In day to day life, right? Each second the world nourishes the five aggregates. The self is no different from the assembly of the five aggregates themselves. The assembly of the five aggregates plays as well a crucial role in the formation, creation, and destruction of all things in the universe. Now, liberation of suffering. In this chapter, Thai says, people normally cut the reality into compartments and so are unable to see the interdependence of all phenomena. To see one in all, no, this is important. To see one in all and all is one is to break through the great barrier which narrows one's perception of reality. What gives me suffering is my own narrow perceptions, which I have been conditioned to see through my all these lifetimes that I have lived, right? All my narrow perceptions. So now, what basically I am trying to do is that I am trying to broaden my perceptions consciously, right? So a certain degree of mindfulness when it comes to me, then I start to consciously look at things in a broader way, the interdependent nature of those things, and that is where I start liberating myself from my suffering. Now Thai says, attachment to the false view of self means belief in the presence of unchanging entities which exist on their own. To break through this false view is to be liberated from every sort of fear, pain, and anxiety. We can liberate from every fear that we have, every pain we have, if we start seeing the interdependent nature of things. Everything is in everything else, everything is in everything else, right? I have no separate self. I am no like one separate Abhinav. I am part of this greater reality. Now, Thai says, if we contemplate the five aggregates in a stubborn and diligent way, we too will be liberated from suffering, fear, and dread. In a stubborn and diligent way, we have to every day, every whatever we do, we have to contemplate on that reality. A person isn't some private entity traveling unaffected through time and space, as if sealed off from the rest of the world by a thick shell, right? Now, important, this para, please read. Perhaps one can say we are only alive when we live the life of the world. So, and so live the sufferings and joys of others. We truly are only able to live when I treat someone else's suffering as my own suffering. So when I uh, when that the this uh, uh, interbeing becomes my experience, it's not just a concept. Then when I see my other person's joy as my own joy, where is the jealousy? When I see other person's suffering as my own suffering, there's abundance of compassion. This is where I start to live. Otherwise, we are all just existing, right? So, our next course of action, one is through breath, we obtain a certain degree of mindfulness, and then next course of action is to start contemplating on the interbeing, interdependent nature of things, and then it will come naturally. Compassion will come naturally. We will start becoming happy in the joys of others naturally, because there is no separate self. There's only one reality. So others joy is also my joy, right? Others success is also my success. Okay. Having seen the reality of the interdependence and having entered deeply into its reality, nothing can oppress you any longer. You are liberated. Meditate on interdependence is to be practiced consistently, not only while sitting, but as an integral part of our involvement in all ordinary tasks. Now, this is something that requires effort, this requires diligence, right? Now, we must learn to see that the person in front of us is ourselves and that we are that person, right? We must be able to see the person of process of interorigination and interdependence of events, both those that are happening now, happening, and those that which will happen. So when I see the other persons, I've made a separate video on my, I think, Hindi channel also, uh, that the wounds that you see in the other person are actually your wounds. So this is what it is. The imperfections of that other person, the his thoughts, his feelings, his cravings and his aversions are my imperfections, my cravings, my aversions, my thoughts and my feelings. We have to think in that, in that way, right? And then we will have that sense of belongingness with that other person. Otherwise we just think that this is his problem and I have nothing to do with that, or or our compassion will be of a surface level. Now, when I see someone very angry, I can look deeply into his anger, and I can look deeply into the same anger that is in me, and then I can realize that it is not anger. It is basically suffering. He is suffering, I am suffering. That feeling is there in both of us because we are not divisible. And that suffering, the root of that anger is suffering, not able to see. Basically, what Thai says, a cry for help. So then my outlook towards my own feelings towards that person and towards that person will change. Like Gandhiji said that be hateful of the sin and not the sinner. Now this is one step ahead, where I don't even like, I'm hateful towards the sin because I know that the sin or that person's particular behavior has a deeper suffering, has a deeper conditioning, has a deeper logic towards it. Nobody behaves in a way rudely. There is something, either he has been conditioned to behave like that. So my job is to practice mindfulness so deeply that I can actually look deeply into his behavior and not just go by the surface level what he's behaving, and then see that that behavior might be coming from a deeper place of suffering, of ignorance. And then what I can do is that I can breathe mindfully. When I breathe mindfully, it will impact the whole cosmos. Difficult concept to digest, but when I breathe mindfully, it can heal the other person. Why? Because that person and me are not separate. There is one underlying reality, and I breathe mindfully. The energy of mindfulness not only helps me, that helps him. So, everywhere the problems and the situations that we see in this world, These are all opportunities for us to practice our own mindfulness stronger, not trying to change. That's why I always say, don't try to change the other person. The problem is in you, which is the similar, philosophy of, Ho'oponopono, right? I just did a Ho'oponopono workshop last Saturday. Everything is in you. We have to just work on ourselves. The more we work on ourselves, the cosmos will change. The change starts from us. Now, the section is on ride on the waves of birth and death. Here, basically, Thai says we must look. If one does not know how to die, one can hardly know how to live, because death is a part of life. Thai says that death. There is a beautiful poem also of Thai. No coming, no going, no birth, no death. Right? Thai says we must look death in the face, recognize and accept it just as we look and accept life. Like we accept life, we should accept death. They are like two sides of the same coin. The Buddhist Sutra on mindfulness specifically talks about meditation on the corpse. And this is what Buddhist monks do. They go in the cemetery and they see the corpse, how they meditate on that corpse, how the body decomposes, how the body bloats and turns violet, how is it eaten by worms until only bits of blood and flesh still cling on the bones. Meditate up to the point where only the bones remain, which in turn are slowly worn away and turn into dust. Meditate like that, knowing that your own body will undergo the same process. Meditate on the corpse until you are calm and at peace, until your mind and heart are light and tranquil, and a smile appears on your face. Thus, see all this revulsion about death, about the fear of the death, these are all the surface level. What we need to now do is look deeply into this fear. That's what they do by looking deeply into a body which is decomposing, a dead body which is decomposing, because at one point all of us will have to undergo that, right? So I look deeply and I see the interdependent nature of things. I see that birth and death are no different. They're the same process, right? By overcoming revulsion and fear, life will be seen as infinitely precious. That means every second that I'm living right now, I have a bigger goal, right? So you who are watching, know that, get that understanding that every second of your life is precious. Do something that creates a transformation in yourself. Do something that it creates a transformation in the lives of others. And it's not just our lives that are recognized as precious, but the lives of every person, every other being, every other reality. Why? What is the reason? Because that person is me. There's no something outside. The person that I see outside is me only. Right? So when I help anyone, basically I'm helping myself only. Without life and death are two faces. Without both, life is not possible. Life is not birth and death, two sides of the same coin. Without both, life will not be possible. Right? Only now is it possible to rise above birth and death and to know how to live and how to die. The sutra says that bodhisattvas are those people who follow the way, right? So bodhisattvas have seen into the reality of interdependence, have broken through all the narrow views, and have been able to enter birth and death as a person takes a ride in a small boat, without being in an ocean, without being submerged or drowned by the waves of birth and death, right? So this knowledge will give us that kind of a So this knowledge will give us that kind of a clarity where we will start not resisting death, and we will be able to pass through this wave of samsara without getting submerged. Right? We will be able to ride this wave of birth and death. Now, at the end, Thai says that if you look at some people say that if you look at the reality with the eyes of the Buddhist, right? So, in like Buddhism, they meditate on the corpse and they see how body decomposes and everything. So, some people they get the wrong view that Buddhists are pessimistic. First of all, I don't like the term Buddhist. Buddhist is not a religion. It is all Buddha's teachings, and any person of any religion can follow his teachings. Thai says that if you look at the reality from a, so you may be pessimistic. But now Thai says that if you think pessimism or optimism oversimplifies the truth, the problem is to see the reality as it is. Our whole task, the purpose of Zen, purpose of Buddhism, Buddha's teachings is to see reality as it is, look deeply into it and not my own perceptions. Again, I clarify, when I see a person, I am not seeing that person. I am seeing my own perception of that person, right? So I have to now remove all my perceptions and see directly, look directly on that person as to who he really is. The problem is to see reality as it is. The pessimistic attitude can never create the calm and serene smile which blossoms on the lips of bodhisattvas and all others who obtain the way, right? So that is just what I wanted to communicate. So this is chapter 5. I hope it had some insights for you. uh, do keep keep coming back on in these videos. Some concepts will be easy, some concepts will be hard. Okay, if again, if you are interested to learning about mindfulness, join my Facebook group, which is the link is there in the description. uh, Next I'll cover the chapter 6, the almond tree in your front yard. So till then, take care, goodbye, thank you so much, god bless you.